My wife lied about her past and slept with her boss, so I secretly hired a lawyer, took the kids, and left her with nothing. I'm a 34-year-old husband who honestly believed I'd married my soulmate. From the outside, our life was the kind of story people envy. Two bright-eyed kids, a modest but cozy house, and a marriage that looked unshakable. Yet lately, tiny cracks had begun to show, hairline fractures that only I seemed to notice. My wife's phone buzzed long after midnight with urgent work messages. She started taking calls in the hallway, her voice low like she was guarding a secret. Another late meeting? I'd ask, half joking. She'd flash that effortless smile, the one that used to calm every fear, and say, "You know how deadlines are?" Her laugh was light, but it rang false. Like a note played just a bit off key. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was just tired from work. Maybe I was jealous of her new promotion and the attention it brought. But the unease in my chest grew heavier each night, an invisible weight pressing down while I lay awake, listening for the soft buzz of her phone. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I passed the hallway and caught the sharp edge of her whisper. She froze when she saw me, thumb fumbling to lock the screen. "Who was that?" I asked quietly. "My sister," she said too quickly, her eyes darting past mine. The air between us thickened, heavy and sour. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but the lie settled over me like a damp blanket I couldn't shake. I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth. Instead, I swallowed my suspicion, the taste bitter and metallic. Something inside me knew, without evidence, without reason, that this was only the first tremor of an earthquake I couldn't yet see. And somewhere deep down, I feared the real cracks hadn't even begun to show. Her girls' nights started as a once-a-month ritual, harmless and even healthy. But slowly they began to multiply, first every other week, then every weekend. Each time she left, she dressed with a little more care, lingered in front of the mirror just a little longer. Her phone never left her hand now. Even while helping our daughter with homework, her eyes flicked down to the glowing screen like it held the key to something more important than us. One Thursday night, I was tucking our kids into bed when I caught the soft hiss of her voice drifting from the hallway. It was urgent, low, the kind of whisper you use when you don't want to be overheard. "Yeah, I'll be there soon," she said. The words were quick, clipped. I stepped out before I could think better of it. She nearly jumped, phone slipping slightly before she caught it. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "My sister," she blurted, the answer too fast, too rehearsed. Her eyes flicked to the side like a guilty child. I wanted to believe her, God, I wanted to, but something in that fleeting glance made my stomach tighten. I nodded, forcing a smile, and watched her retreat into the kitchen like nothing had happened. That night, I lay beside her in the dark. Her back turned, the steady rise and fall of her breathing a cruel rhythm. My own heart pounded far too loud for sleep. I stared at the ceiling, every tick of the clock stretching longer than the last. A seed of suspicion took root, tiny, almost invisible, but alive. And with every hour of silence it grew, curling its way through my chest, leaving a chill in the space between us that no blanket could warm. I knew something had shifted, even if I couldn't yet name it. A few weeks later, the universe handed me a clue I wasn't even looking for. I ran into one of her old college friends at a coffee shop, someone she'd mentioned only in passing, like a minor character in a story she barely remembered. He spotted me first, grinning like we were old pals. "You're married to her, right?" he said, eyes lighting up. Man, she used to be wild. I'm surprised she settled down so quickly. The word wild landed like a pebble dropped into still water, ripples of unease spreading through me. "What do you mean?" I asked, careful to keep my voice casual. He chuckled, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Parties, road trips, pulling all-nighters for reasons that had nothing to do with studying. She was the life of every party. I smiled weakly, made small talk, and excused myself. But inside, the ground shifted. This didn't match the woman I knew, the one who'd always described her college years as quiet, almost boring.
She'd once told me I was never into that scene.
Too focused on my future. That evening, I approached her gently while she chopped vegetables for dinner. "I ran into Mark today," I said. "He had some
Interesting stories about you in college." She looked up sharply, then laughed, a sound a little too bright. "Oh, please."
Mark always exaggerates. You know how guys like to make everything sound dramatic. Her knife kept moving, quick and sure, but she didn't meet my eyes. I wanted to accept her answer, to shrug it off as harmless nostalgia, but a hard knot tightened in my stomach. If she could lie so easily about the person she'd been before me, what else could she hide now? The doubt I'd been trying to smother finally hardened into something solid, and it wasn't going away. One evening, the baby monitor crackled with our son's wail, sharp and sudden. She darted upstairs, leaving her laptop open on the dining table, something she never did. I moved to close it out of habit when a soft ping broke the quiet. A new email notification flashed across the screen. It was from her boss. The subject line was harmless enough, "last night," but the preview text caught my breath.
"Still can't stop thinking about you," my heart lurched. I shouldn't look, I knew it.
But my fingers hovered over the trackpad, trembling until the decision made itself. I clicked. The thread unspooled like a nightmare, lines of teasing banter that left no room for misinterpretation. Flirty jokes turned to late-night confessions, and then words so explicit I felt my face burn. "Can't wait for our next hotel escape. You drive me crazy when you wear that red dress." Each sentence was a blow I couldn't dodge. The man she'd always called just a mentor, the one she described as a father figure at work, he wasn't just crossing lines. He'd erased them completely. My chest tightened, my pulse a roar in my ears. The room seemed to tilt, the walls leaning in. I could smell the faint citrus of her perfume still hanging in the air, mocking me. Upstairs, our son's cries softened as she soothed him, her voice a gentle lullaby. Down here, the life I thought I knew fractured in silence. I closed the laptop with shaking hands, heart pounding so hard it hurt. When she came back down, cheeks flushed from the effort of calming our boy, she smiled absently at me, like nothing in the world had changed, but everything had. And now
I couldn't unsee the truth. That night,
I waited until the kids were asleep and the house settled into that fragile hush before confronting her. My voice came out lower than I intended, a quiet tremor under the words. "I saw the emails," I said, leaning against the doorway.
"Explain them." She stiffened, then forced a brittle laugh. "Oh my God,
"You're reading it all wrong."
it's just office banter, inside jokes."
"You know how we tease each other? Inside jokes?" My chest felt like it was closing in. He wrote about hotel escapes. Her eyes flickered, just for a heartbeat. Then she shook her head, arms folding like a shield. "You're twisting things."
"I can't believe you'd think I'd do that to us." Her denial was so smooth it almost made me question my own eyes. Almost. But when she finally turned away,
Mumbling about needing sleep, something inside me snapped. Hours later, her breathing deep and even beside me, I reached for her phone, locked, of course. But her laptop, the one she thought she'd closed, still hummed softly downstairs. I opened the browser and found a hidden tab tucked beneath layers of mundane work files, a private social account. My pulse hammered as I scrolled through a stream of messages that stripped away every last illusion, not just flirtation, plans,
plane tickets,
apartment listings in a city 3 states away. Her words spilled across the screen like a confession she'd never meant me to see. "Once the kids are settled, we'll finally start our life together." I stared until the letters blurred. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was building an escape, one that didn't include me or the children. The betrayal was no longer a jagged wound. It was a gaping chasm, and in that quiet darkness, I realized she wasn't planning to break my heart. She was planning to erase our family. The next morning I moved like a man underwater, every sound muffled, every movement slow. But beneath the numbness, a sharp, icy resolve began to form. By noon, I was dialing a number I hadn't used in years, an old college friend who'd become a family lawyer. I kept my voice low as I spoke from the car, parked 2 blocks away from home.
I need help, I whispered, words catching in my throat.
And no one can know, not yet. He didn't ask for details, just listened. When I finally spilled everything, her affair, the hidden messages, the plan to disappear, his silence was heavy, then firm. First we protect the kids, then we build your case. Over the next days we mapped it out like a covert operation. I gathered evidence, screenshots of emails, the secret account's messages, her late-night text logs. Each piece felt like a shard of glass, but I collected them carefully, tucking them away like ammunition. At home, I played my role, the dependable husband, the playful father. I laughed at bedtime stories, kissed her cheek when she returned from another girl's night, all while my heart clenched. Inside, though, I was a quiet strategist. Every smile was a mask, every gesture calculated. The double life weighed on me like a lead blanket. Even the kids' laughter sometimes sounded far away, as though I were already halfway out the door. But in that suffocating secrecy, a strange spark flickered. Control. For the first time since the night I found those emails, I wasn't just reacting. I was moving, planning, protecting what mattered. Each step toward freedom sharpened my focus. And though she still thought I was blind, I was already setting the stage for the moment when her carefully built world would crumble on my terms. The night of her company's annual party arrived wrapped in glitter and polite laughter, but my stomach felt like stone. I told myself I was there to keep up appearances. One more night of smiling.
Through the cracks, but a part of me wanted to see for
myself what she thought she was hiding. The ballroom pulsed, with low music and the clink of champagne glasses. Gold light from crystal chandeliers flickered across polished floors as couples swayed in easy rhythm. I stood near the edge of the crowd, watching her glide through the room like it belonged to her. Effortless, radiant, untouchable. Then I saw him, her boss. He slipped behind her with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. His hand settled on her lower back, his thumb drawing slow, deliberate circles, as though claiming her in front of everyone. She didn't flinch. She didn't even lean away. She simply smiled, eyes half closed, as if his touch was the most natural thing in the world. My chest tightened until breathing felt like dragging air through broken glass. I caught the subtle shift around us, 2 co-workers whispering, one of them darting an uncomfortable glance my way. The music swelled, a cheerful pop song that felt like mockery. Someone nearby laughed too loud, the sound sharp enough to cut. I forced a smile, the muscles in my face stiff and foreign. I clinked a glass with a colleague who wouldn't meet my eyes. My heart hammered, not with rage, but with a humiliation so deep it made my vision blur. This wasn't just a private betrayal anymore. It was spectacle, my wife and her lover performing a cruel play while I stood center stage. The unknowing fool, and in that moment, beneath the glittering lights and false smiles, I hit rock bottom. The morning after that party, the shame still clung to me like smoke, but it had hardened into something sharper, resolve. I woke before sunrise, the house silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. While she slept upstairs, I moved through each room like a shadow, careful not to creak a single floorboard. First came the bank statements, every account, every credit card. I slid them into a folder with trembling hands, the paper whispering like a secret. Next were the screenshots, the late-night emails, the messages from her hidden account, the plane tickets she never meant me to see. Each capture felt like a cut, but I saved them all, my phone glowing like a quiet accomplice. By mid-morning, I was in my car, parked a few streets away, speaking in low tones to my lawyer.
"It's time," I said. voice steady despite the storm inside me.
He didn't hesitate. Papers for full custody. A carefully structured divorce plan. Every step designed to protect the kids and leave no room for her to twist the narrative. That afternoon, I called my parents. "Can the kids spend the weekend with you?" I asked, forcing a casual tone. They agreed without question, unaware that this wasn't a weekend visit. It was the first step in a permanent move, the quiet beginning of a new life. Back home, she laughed into her phone, spinning more lies I no longer needed to hear. I watched from the doorway, my face a mask of polite detachment. While she reveled in her double life, I built mine in silence, an escape route she could never anticipate. Every document, every plan tightened the net around her, and for the first time in months, I felt the ground solid beneath my feet. She thought she was playing a game I couldn't see.
But the next move was mine. That Friday evening, the sky hung low and grey, the kind of dusk that makes every streetlight flicker like a warning.
She'd texted that she would be working late. Those same two words that had become a signal of betrayal rather than overtime. I didn't reply. As soon as the door clicked shut behind her hours earlier, I moved quickly, every step rehearsed in my mind for weeks. The kids sat quietly in their rooms, sensing more than I'd explained, their wide eyes following me as I packed only what mattered. Clothes, favorite toys, the worn storybook our daughter couldn't sleep without. Each zipper closing sounded louder than the last, echoing through a house that already felt like someone else's. On the kitchen counter, I placed a single envelope. Inside, the divorce papers, full custody request, and every screenshot and email that had turned my heart to stone. I rested my hand on it for a long moment, the paper cool beneath my palm, before walking away. The house was eerily silent, except for the slow hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of the hallway clock. I took one last look, our framed wedding photo, smiling back in cruel contrast, then reached for my children's hands. Their fingers wrapped around mine, small and trusting. We stepped into the cool night air, the crunch of gravel beneath our feet, the only sound. I locked the door without a word and slid the key into my pocket. By the time she returned, the home she'd filled with lies stood empty, her carefully guarded secrets spread bare in a single envelope. Her world, so carefully constructed, so confidently hidden, was about to collapse, and for the first time in months, I felt the heavy weight of her betrayal shift onto her shoulders where it belonged. My phone erupted before sunrise, first a single call, then another until it buzzed like an angry hornet's nest. I let it vibrate against the nightstand, each ring a pulse of everything I'd held back for months. Finally, curiosity won.
I answered, her voice sliced through the line, shaky, panicked, laced with rage.
"Where are you?"
"Where are the kids?"
I kept my own voice low, measured.
"They're safe. You kidnapped them."
She screamed, the words cracking like glass.
"I'll call the police."
"You can," I said evenly. "My lawyer has every document you'll need. And every message you ever sent." Silence. For the first time in months, I heard her breath catch, not in defiance, but in fear. She called again, minutes later, this time pleading.
"We can fix this, please. I was going to tell you."
It wasn't what you think, but my lawyer's plan was airtight. Full custody paperwork filed, evidence catalogued and time-stamped. There was nothing for her to twist, nowhere to hide. By afternoon, the chaos began to spread. Her boss, once bold enough to trace circles on her back in front of me, sent a single, curt email severing ties.
"No apology, just a cold retreat."
He vanished as quickly as he'd appeared, leaving her to face the wreckage alone. Friends and family who once admired her perfect wife facade now knew the truth. Screenshots made their way through whispered group texts. The story needed no embellishment. The same people who had envied her life now watched her empire of deceit collapse overnight. My phone kept buzzing, each call a little weaker than the last, until it finally went silent. In that quiet,
I felt no triumph, only a strange, steady calm.
the storm had finally shifted, and for the first time, she was the one standing in the ruins she created. The day of the meeting arrived heavy with a silence I could feel in my bones. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of old leather and coffee, a sterile calm that only made my pulse hammer harder. I sat at the long oak table, fingers laced tightly, when the door opened and she stepped in. Her eyes flicked to mine, defiant, almost rehearsed. "This is ridiculous," she said, before even sitting down. "You're overreacting. We can work this out at home." I didn't move. My lawyer simply opened a folder and began sliding. Printed pages across the table, screenshots, emails, the
Hidden messages from her secret account, the color drained.
from her face as each sheet landed in front of her.
Like a quiet accusation.
Her lips parted, but no sound came. "These," my lawyer said evenly, "are time-stamped and verified. They clearly outline your plans to relocate with Mr. Jennings without informing your husband or the children." She shook her head, a tremor breaking through the last of her composure.
It's not what it looks like," she whispered. But even she seemed to hear the emptiness of her own words. I finally spoke, my voice steady in a way that surprised me.
"Here are my terms: full custody of the children. No shared assets beyond what the court requires."
You'll receive what's mandated, nothing more. Her eyes darted from me to the lawyer, then back again, searching for some crack in the wall we'd built.
There was none. The room seemed to shrink, the tick of the clock louder than her shallow breaths. For the first time since this nightmare began, she had no clever retort, no charming deflection, only silence, stunned, heavy, final. And in that quiet, I felt the last thread of her control snap like a frayed wire. Months later, the chaos that once filled every corner of my life had thinned into a quiet I hadn't known in years. Mornings became gentle rituals, the smell of coffee drifting through the kitchen while the kids padded in with sleepy smiles, their laughter spilling across the table like sunlight. Bedtime turned into something sacred. Storybooks read aloud without the weight of suspicion, the soft rustle of blankets settling over a house finally free of tension. Therapy helped me stitch together the pieces of myself she'd tried to fracture. Week after week, I learned to name the hurt without letting it define me. The anger that once burned in my chest cooled into something steadier, clarity, strength. I began to see that her betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a mirror of her own choices. She tried, of course. Late-night emails filled with apologies, messages laced with nostalgia, promises to explain everything if I'd just talk. But each attempt felt hollow, a desperate echo of the life she'd thrown away. Friends and family who once admired her perfect facade saw through it now. Sympathy never came. I didn't need revenge. Her own actions had given her that. What I needed was the life I now held in my hands. Evenings of giggles over board games. Saturday mornings spent chasing the kids through the park.
A home where trust didn't feel like a gamble. One night,
As I tucked my daughter in, she whispered, "Daddy, we're happy now." A small hand curled around mine, warm and sure. For the first time in years,
I believed her. This wasn't victory born of spite.
it was the quiet, unshakable power of starting over, for their sake and for mine. Our home was whole again, and so was I.